Stellar Blade has been one of the most hyped up video game releases of the year so far, and while it did face some controversy from the journos who were trying their very best to get it cancelled, and also the news of censorship, ShiftUp has said it has been a major success so far, and while they are developing a new project, they are also discussing a sequel and PC version of Stellar Blade. I have a few different things that I want to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. Now, obviously, they had a deal with Sony for PlayStation 5 exclusivity, and eventually that time will run out, and of course, they are looking to the future, trying to figure out ways to sell more copies of this game. Now, of course, I'm someone who thinks that a game should release on as many platforms as possible. Clearly, ShiftUp wanted that Sony money, though, and we see where that led them, down a very dark path that did anger a lot of customers because, of course, Sony forced them to censor outfits and tweak a lot of small things that ended up adding up, and they did upset a lot of people with that move, but the game itself was really fantastic. If it had not been censored, I think that so many more people would have purchased it, and we've already heard that it is a success in their eyes, but now we're also hearing discussions of sequels and the PC version. This is a That Park Place article. It says a new report details that Stellar Blade developer ShiftUp Corporation is discussing a PC version of the game, as well as a sequel, with confirming they are working on a new cross-platform title going by codename, which is now, of course, ShiftUp is definitely known for creating very sexy-looking characters and really appealing to, what gamers actually want. But there's still a lot of worry with their upcoming projects. They are not just going to have, blind trust, the blind trust that a lot of us put in them with Stellar Blade. A lot of people were really hoping that there was going to be no censorship, and even days before release, they said there was going to be no censorship worldwide, and it was uncensored, and we praised them. And then, of course, the lie detector determined that that was a lie. And again, I do think it was primarily because of Sony, but ShiftUp is still the ones who made a lot of the changes, and of course, they are the ones who picked the design, so they do still deserve some of the flack. Of course, it seems like it was definitely very rushed, and they weren't expecting to do that, given there are like tooltips in the game and, menu pop-ups that show Eve throughout the game in different outfits, and we even saw the uncensored versions without black tights or the lace in the cleavage area, so it seems like it was kind of a rushed job, but it was still censored nonetheless. It says, though, the report comes from an ex-user who detailed Stellar Blade developer ShiftUp confirms both a PC version and a sequel are under consideration. I think a lot of people would buy a sequel. I know myself, I would still probably try to give them the benefit and say, oh, well, we'll see what they're going to do with the next game, because the first game was really good. But if they decided to make a sequel, I would definitely hope they stick away from, Sony censorship land. He added that this consideration comes as the game's sales are exceeding expectations, which of course is fantastic to hear. ShiftUp had said since its launch, it's ranked #1 in 8 countries, including the US, UK, Canada, and Japan. I have been talking about the sales figures quite a bit on the channel, and while we don't have definitive numbers, we definitely have seen it be a success. I mean, since launch, for the past few weeks, it has stayed at least in the top 3 in sales charts, and of course it did rank #1 in 8 countries and has stayed there, so it is exceeding expectations. But this is what happens when you make a game and you primarily, will say, stick to your vision, and of course we're not seeing blatant narratives shoved into our face and messaging crammed into every line of dialogue or lore within this game, and it was just a very refreshing experience, especially with the state of the video game industry currently. And of course, there are still plenty of people who are hoping that this is going to come to PC, we can buy it and unmod it, and of course, there are still some individuals holding out hope that ShiftUp and Sony will see the backlash and decide to alter their course. Now, I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think that they are going to uncensor it. That's just my personal opinion. I've covered Sony 100 times on this channel at this point, and their, ways of how they censor things and what they censor and what they tell developers, and very rarely, maybe twice, they've actually reverted changes, and we're not even talking about this many instances, so I do not think that is going to happen, but the petition is still going extremely strong. As you can see, it is currently sitting at 90,466 signatures, and the next goal is a whopping 150,000. Now, I feel a little bit mixed about petitions. I think that it is great to start them and great to try, but unfortunately, companies a lot of the time do not listen. Look at the Amber Heard situation. Millions of signatures, and they just went, oh, we don't really care. You guys can keep whining. And unfortunately, with the amount of censorship Sony has forced upon developers over the past few years, I just don't necessarily see them taking this to heart and actually trying to grow from this situation. But either way, Stellar Blade still proves one thing, and that is that woke does not sell. Even with the censorship in the game, we still had extremely sexy costumes, definitely some sexual jokes and themes within the game, and it still overall did not represent a woke product, which is fantastic because of its success, because there were so many journos and activists and losers melting down over this game, and these people wanted this title to fail, and now that it has succeeded and they're saying it exceeded expectations, it's fantastic to see this happen and to see another product that does not have a modern message shoved into it being a massive hit. Now, of course, I think we're all hoping that they do release a PC version maybe next year on the 1-year anniversary, because you can mod the censorship out, and of course you can mod in basically whatever you want into this game, which will be fantastic. And obviously, if they do come out with a sequel, I do think it will see a lot of success, and I do think a lot of people would support it, but there are still individuals, talking about how they're really hoping that this first game will be uncensored, and I'm crossing my fingers. I do really hope that that is the case. Unfortunately, though, I would not hold my breath because it is Sony, but a report is saying that ShiftUp Corp is developing a new project while also discussing the sequel and PC version for Stellar Blade. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.